Okay, hey everybody, how you doing? Tekking here. Barry's chilling out with me on this one. For like the six of you out there that were like, Tekking, make more D&D content. Well, let me tell you, I'm here to tell you the answer to that is a resounding yeah, I guess so. If there's something interesting happens, we could talk about it. No, it's actually been a lot more than six. It was a solid baker's dozen of people that asked me to do this again. So I appreciate it. I really do. But no, yeah, I love talking about D&D. I'm gonna do these videos in a lot more kind of laid back, vloggedy kind of style. So if I stumble over my words, or if I say something, or I have to take a pause to like brain freeze and go through it, just bear with me on that. But yeah, if I have something exciting happen to me in a session or something, I'll talk about it. And as it happens, the last two sessions that I was part of with my group were a big deal for me because they were the first times I ever DM'd. So finally, I felt like an entrance test to like a college or something. Like I bought the core books like in November of 2018, and I was reading up like how do you play the damn game, and all right, then I just bought all these books. So many books, more books than I really need. I just bought this one the other day, The Hoard of the Dragon Queen. So yeah, I'm reading that right now. That sounds like fun. Storm King's Thunder. That's pretty badass. It has giants in it, right? Okay, cool, right? So I'm reading up on that for like a good 6 months before I even find a group to game with, and then I game with them as a player for a couple of sessions. We have like a main story we're doing, and then we have some one-offs that we do. We have a lot of fun. I get some experience on how DMing is structured and how everything works with a group, and I'm like, all right. And so finally, last year in September, I started writing my own adventure, and you can tell it's my adventure because it says my adventure, not someone else's adventure. It's my adventure. Okay, so I start writing this in September, and I keep mentioning it to my group that, hey guys, I'm writing an adventure, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. Do you want to run it next week? And I'm like, oh, no, we're not done with it. It really is like an exam for college, where it's like you want to turn it in now? No, not yet. I still need to get stuff done. I still need to fill this in. Actually, you know what? Let me just erase this whole thing and try again. So I work on this for the bulk of September, and then I kind of go away from it for a little while. I go back to tinker with it every now and then, but haven't really touched it for a good number of weeks. And then a couple weeks ago, in fact, it was the day right after I did the charity stream. I did that like 8-hour charity stream for St. Jude Children's Hospital. We raised like over $8,400, so thanks everybody that donated. But I had that really long day of setting it up and doing the stream, and then I had to bring everything back home, and I'm just laying in bed Saturday night, and I'm like, yeah, that was a good day, Matt. You did good. You raised money. Everybody helped out. It was a great time. I go to bed, wake up the next day, just, you know what? I'm just going to take the day. I'm going to take the day off. And I knew I was going to be out with my friends that night, but I get a text message, everybody can make it, which we hadn't really had a chance to play D&D for a while because everybody's, you have work, or, it's the holidays, people are busy running around. This was right before Christmas. But this one day, this Sunday, we actually managed to get everybody together, and it's like, hey, let's play D&D. We haven't played D&D in like over a month or so. And I'm like, yeah, let's do that. And they're like, Matt, do you want to DM? And I was just like, yeah. Yes, I do. Let's fucking do this, So this was like, I remember this was like 10 o'clock in the morning when we're sorting this out. I have to be there at like 5, and I'm like, all right. So I'm pulling this out, and I'm like, I haven't looked at the papers in like months, and I'm like, all right, yeah, my adventure. Yeah, I remember my adventure. Damn, I should have done this when everything was fresh in my mind. Who the hell is Xander? What does he do? He's in a thieves guild. I don't remember this guy at all. I remember he did something with trading cards. That was it. I just wrote Bulette here. What does that mean? Do they fight a Bulette? Does a Bulette become their ally? That doesn't make any sense. So I'm running through this, and I get a good, 7 hours to refresh my memory on everything that I did. So, prep time. Something else that I didn't get a chance to do, and that's like my first piece of advice here, and this is something that I did want to do. It's just that this came last minute, and I kind of had a moment where I was like, you know what? I want to DM. I really want to DM, and it's one of those things where like you gotta just dive into it. You just gotta dive in. You're amongst friends. You're not like, all right, Matt, please stand in front of this crowd of thousands and talk about your DMing plan. Talk about your adventure, and we will all judge you for it. It's like, no, just dive in. Like, even if it sucks, at least you learned what you did wrong, right? So I'm like, you know what, I gotta do this. But something I would have recommended to everybody, at least your first time out, is to get a handle on it, get your characters, get your player characters, like, what kind of, person they're bringing to the table. Get that beforehand so you can kind of plan in advance. And that's kind of handy because, it's like, hey, I'm playing a warlock with this kind of patron that does this and this and this, and this is my backstory. That way you get to, like, plan ahead to be like, all right, I need to incorporate a warlock with this backstory. I need to incorporate a half-orc barbarian with this backstory. I need to incorporate a fighter with this backstory all into this story, because a big part of this is everybody getting together and having fun and, feeling like, hey, their character choices are actually, mattering during the story. So I didn't get a chance to do that. I pretty much got to their place and immediately just jumped right in and started doing it, right? So, yeah, I was, and in future adventures, I'll make sure to, like, tell them what kind of thing, what the general scope of the adventure, what it's going to be about, what kind of level of character they're going to bring, and I can, like, take time to look at their character sheets and, like, all right, this is the kind of character you're bringing and everything like that, and I can work to see how that's going to go. But so I didn't get a chance to do that. So that's something I would definitely recommend. Something else that I used very heavily during the campaign, and something I would also recommend, are apps. There's a lot of D&D apps out there, and I have these ones. You can kind of see them there with the autofocus there. So there's the D&D apps I have. There's a lot more. If you just go on the Play Store and type in Dungeons & Dragons, you'll probably find these as, like, the first result. These are from Dungeon Dev or Dungeon Developer, I believe. So just type in, like, D&D Dungeon Dev, and you'll find these. Very handy. They basically just compile all the information from the various books. So, for example, if you want a certain spell, you type on the spell app here, and it's a little S for spell. You get it? Yeah, S for spell. And, you have spells in the core books here, all of the main spells in the Player's Handbook. You got spells in Xanathar's, you got spells in a bunch of other books. So what this does is, that's very handy, is you can just, here's all the list of spells, and you can organize them by level or by name, alphabetically, or there's a search feature. So let's say, for example, somebody, I'm not saying who, Rob, decides to cast a spell called Mental Prison, which is this redonkulously overpowered spell, and you want to know how the hell that works. You go up here and you type in Mental Prison. And Mental Prison right here, and it'll tell you it's a 6th level illusion, and it'll also tell you what book it is from, so XGE, so Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and then it explains the spell, the exact same thing that's in the book, in just this easily readable and searchable format. So, I love using books, I love collecting books, as you can tell here, but, it's also handy just to have, and I didn't use my tablet because we had limited table space, so I was using my phone mostly, but it's very handy when it's like, oh, you have a random encounter with my campaign, it was a random boar encounter. They fought giant boars. They fought 30 to 50 wild feral hogs. I think it was, it was 2 to 4 wild giant boars, okay? But, instead of pulling up the book and looking through, it's like, oh crap, which book were boars in? Was that in Volo's, or was that in the Player Handbook? Crap. No, you can just type it on the app, pull this up here. If my freaking crappy non-iPad works here. Type in the Bestrally. I think the first time I ever heard that word actually pronounced was during Netflix's Castlevania, because I think Trevor was fighting a Cyclops or something. He's like, right out of the family Bestrally. And I'm like, that's how you pronounce that word? Okay, I'm probably mispronouncing it anyway. But you just go on here and then just type in boar. And then giant boar, wereboar, boar, giant boar. There's the stats. Have them right there for you. Pulling up, there's the attacks. That's what they do. All laid out very conveniently. So, yeah, even if you're a book fiend like me and you just love to have all the books, just get the apps when you're actually gaming, because it's just way easier just to pull it up and just have it at the ready there. So those are pieces of advice I would throw up. I also have some apps here for just dice, just on the off chance for some reason I need some dice rolling. I bring a lot of dice with me. Everybody has dice. No, this is a character sheet. You can also do that. I was in with another group of people that mostly use the digital version of the character sheets. They didn't all have character sheets to pass around, so they just did that. But here's like a simple dice app if you just want to roll like a D100, boom, 70, easy. So I would just have some, it's lovely to live in the digital age. Also, probably another one I just wanted to spotlight really quick. I mean, a lot of these are pretty simple, like, the spells, characters, items. But I love this one the best. This was RPG Generator, and this was extraordinarily handy in making my adventure, where you could go in, and this pretty much has, like, everything that you could possibly generate. You got town, NPC, quest, items, so, you know, if you want to generate, like, if you're just, you want to come up with everything off the top of your head, like, I had a few ideas for what I wanted to do, but it's just like, hey, what happens if they go over here and do this? I'm like, alright, well, let's say I have a random encounter, so you type on encounter, and then you have all these different versions of encounter, like forest, desert, jungle encounters. I'm reading Vinland Saga right now, so there's Nordic Viking encounters as a category. And then you roll a D100, and then there's all the options for it. And these are not super exclusive. They don't tell you, like, every little detail. You can kind of bend them to your own story and what makes sense. But let's roll a D100 here. I can do that, right? Yeah, I have a D100. Yeah, here we go. Let's roll a D100 here. We got 23. So, in this random Nordic and Viking table, a mysterious saga stone has appeared overnight with glowing runes written in a strange language that none of the locals can identify. See, there you go. That doesn't tell you everything. That's just like, here you go, buddy. Here's the bait. Just take it, and there you go. Roll with it. You wake up, a magic stone with weird runes on it. No one can read. What does it do? Maybe a storm giant dropped it or some shit. Like, what the hell? It just came out of the sky? What's up with that? Who knows, right? So, yeah, the very, very handy one. I used this quite a few times during the campaign that I ran. The miscellaneous table is awesome. Like, here's 114 Fae pranks. Here's 114 ways the Fae can just screw you over. So let's roll the D100 again. I love rolling D100s. What is that, 65? All right, 65. A player wakes up with a bloody severed head in his sleeping bag. Oh, those Fae! Once held, it screams and bursts into a bunch of moths. That doesn't even have to lead into anything. That could just be like your character really pissed off the Fae at one point. You wake up and it's, oh my god! You know? So there you go, right? I love that app, and I use that app quite a bit. Alright, so basing what my adventure really was. Alright, so the idea here was like, alright. This is my first adventure. I'm not going to do anything super hyper complicated. Alright, let's actually keep this fairly basic with maybe a little bit of a Tekking spin to it, alright? So, characters, they all arrive in a town. The town I called White Ridge. It's at the base of this giant mountain, which is like Mount Everest. So it's like right at the base of Mount Everest. They got this huge mountain, really cool. It was around Christmas time when we were doing the campaign. It was like right before Christmas. So I did like, there's this massive festival in town, and there's bright lights everywhere, and there's like stalls and shops selling their wares. People are walking around with mutton, eating cotton candy. It's a big festival. Have a good time. And I basically set it up like there's one very obvious place you should go, but there's also there's a festival going on. So I came up with like a bunch of festival stalls for them to go to, and shops to go into, and characters and NPCs and all that stuff. So something I will admit, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that this happened to, okay? When you are writing an adventure for other DMs that have more experience than I, even if you are not intentionally doing this, I feel like there's a lot of times when you will be, like, taking things from other stories you've read, or video games, or books. Like, even if you're not consciously doing it, I'm, like, writing this out, and I'm like, alright, so there's gonna be, like, this huge guild in town that's gonna be giving out quests, like an adventuring guild, and I was coming up with like characters that would be working for this guild, and it took me a good probably like 20 minutes before I started to realize that I'm basically just doing fairy tale, and I had to stop and kind of question myself for a second. I'm like, wow, because there's like, I'm not even shitting you, I seriously didn't even realize this when I was writing it, but I'm like, yeah, there's gonna be a girl in the guild, and I have a whole page just dedicated to this guild. Yeah, there's going to be a guild member named Alice, and she's going to be an assassin, and she's going to be this girl that's super attractive, and then she can also, there's a drinking contest in town, and she's going to be participating in this drinking contest, and she's going to be like, basically the player characters are going to have to beat her in order to win this drinking contest, because she can pound back all this booze. And I had to stop when I was like, well after I was done writing this, I was like out for a walk, and I was like, shit, that's basically just Kana from Fairy Tail. And also Vanessa from Black Clover. I'm like, shit, man! Like, and I had to stop myself. I'm like, I'm ripping off fucking fairy tale. Why did my subconscious go there? Like, I wasn't even doing that intentionally. But it happens. And, you know, one of our DM, his name's Frank, you know, the DM that did all of the adventures previously, you know, it's like DM'd everything, and now, you know, me and Rob are the players. Then we're going to try to take our hand at it here. I think Rob's coming up with an adventure that he's going to try next time, you know, but it's like, Frank even told me, he's like, don't be afraid to take stuff like tropes from various things, you know, because just have fun with it, right? But it's like, you know, it's a different atmosphere with DMing, you know, where it's like you can add your own little spin to it and everything. And I'm like, I really like this concept, so I'm just gonna keep doing it, right? So I kept doing that. So the idea, the premise here, is that in this town of White Ridge, there's this giant guild, an adventurer guild called Griffin's Wing. Just roll with it. And the guild is kind of past its prime. It used to be this really popular guild. There used to be all these great warriors and wizards and everybody that would help the, you know, the adventure for this guild. And it was known far and wide the region over as being this amazing guild. Now it's kind of fallen into hard times. It's not looking that great. And there's a kid out in front of the guild that's like very sheepishly like handing out flyers. And he's like trying to recruit people into the guild, but he's just getting shoved around. And he's just like, excuse me, sir, could you please? And the kid is named Jeremy. Now, anybody that's read or, you know, see what I mean? The Dollar Tree manga, the fishing cod that Miko Leaf drew, and the story. I work Jeremy into pretty much everything that I do that's fictitious, right? Pretty much. Jeremy is a character I've used before, okay? So Jeremy in this context is like a 12-year-old apprentice mage that's apprenticing under a mage that is at the Griffin's Wing, and as part of this big festival, he's handing out flyers to anyone trying to get their help in this guild. So I made the flyer because I'm me, and I'm like, well, I gotta make the flyer, right? So here's the flyer, and it's the most, like I said, this is the most stereotypical, like, hail and well met there, traveler. You know, what does that say? I used a weird font. Today, a once-of-a-lifetime offering awaits you at the world's famous Griffin's Wing Guild. Fame, riches, and high adventure awaits. Inquire inside, ask for Vincent. Free appetizers will be provided. That got them, and they're looking at that, and they're like, free food! And I'm like, yeah, free food. So, yeah, in a sense, I wanted to make it stereotypical because the way that the Vincent is the guild master, and he's a mage, and he's pretty powerful, and I wanted it to seem like he's trying to do a sales pitch to get people into the guild. So I just basically tried to think of like what the equivalent of like a chain letter would be in the Dungeons and Dragons universe. You ever get those in the mail or like junk email? Like go to your spam folder in your email right now and just try to find like, hi there, insert name here. Would you like to go on a fabulous Bahama cruise? Sun? Happiness? Fun? To come on and board the, you know, great Royal Cruise Lines, you know, like, you know, and we'll be setting sail for the high seas and whatever, and bright blue horizons, all that crap. So I'm like, all right, I'm just like, what's the equivalent of that in this world? Just like, it's basically like fame and riches. Come in here and you'll find out what's up. So they go into the guild, and they meet Vincent. Vincent's like this older dude, and Jeremy's just there, and he's just like, you know, it's like, ah, here you go, right? And so the premise is this. It's not necessarily to join the guild. The premise is that they're going to have 3 separate quests for the player characters to select from. And the idea is that the guild is kind of down on notoriety right now. Everyone kind of thinks that they're, you know, not as good as they once were. And Vincent's kind of aware of this, and he's sad because he's the guild master. So he's like, hey, here's what you do. Go and take one of these quests. These are like the hardest quests that we have. The people in our guild right now are kind of not strong enough to deal with these quests. But if you people can go and complete the quests in the name of the Griffin Wing Guild, then people will, you know, stop, you know, flapping their mouth about how shitty our guild is, and like, oh, yeah, the Griffin Wings, they did this, you know, there was this really bad quest and they conquered it and everything, and so that'll build up things. And so basically the reward that I had for this was like Vincent was offering them like a 70-30 split of the money, because like every quest yields a certain amount of like gold as a reward, but because he's like, you guys are helping out the guild here, so because you're helping us out, I really don't care about money too much. I care more about like our reputation, and so if you can uphold our reputation, then I'll allow, like, you get to keep 70% of the gold, 30% goes to the guild, and if there's any magical items or any artifacts that you get as a reward or you get throughout the quest, normally all that stuff would go to the guild as well, but you get to keep all of that. So that was the offer I gave to them. One of the players, I think it was Kennedy, who was the barbarian. Yeah, she played a barbarian, I believe. Yeah, she usually goes barbarian or fighter almost all the time. Or monk, but she's like, not 70-30, 60-40. And I had a moment like, oh, so you want to get less money then? I'm like, oh, okay. And so we had like a weird argument, but I was like, that's less money, but okay. So we said, it's like, oh, well, that's very gracious of you. I can tell that you're very nice, but we'll stick with the 70-30. Let's stay that. So that's the reward and everything. So I present to them 3 quests, which I also printed out the flyers because, of course, and they're color-coded, mostly just because I had a bunch of colored paper, and when else am I gonna get a chance to use this shit? So I'm like, alright. So here's the deal. First off, we got, like, a sea monster threat in a fishing village. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but if you want to pause the video and read it, there you go. The reward for this one I set at 1,000 gold, and but it was written by like a crazy man. So someone was like, "I'll give you a 10,000 gold." Actually, they crossed 1,000 gold if you come and help us out here. So there's that one. And then we have this one, which is there's trolls basically encamped in a mountain fortress, and a local order of knights wants you to go and take care of them. And there's like a 5,000, because so this is the one that had the highest monetary reward. I kind of differentiate. I wanted to make it like, okay, each quest has different things to offer, so they're not like the same amount. So if you just want a lot of fucking money, then this is the reward for you. If you want not as much money but some magical items and stuff, this is the one for you. And then the last one was this one, and this one I deliberately kept as vague as possible. This was the mystery in the farming village, where just some people have gone missing in this village, and it's been kind of like rumored that it's like a dark, evil place. The guild had previously sent out like their greatest champion to go and investigate, and he went missing, as well as some other people from the guild that went missing. So there's no rewards, there's no formal request given, but some weird shit's going on in this village, right? So that was the premise of the adventure, and remarkably, guess which one they picked? I was actually surprised. They pretty much went with this one. Yeah, there was a little bit of a debate, like, oh, we're doing the trolls or sea monster, but no, they ended up deciding on going into the mystery farming village one, and I was surprised because this one is very clearly no rewards given. Now, I was gonna give them a reward, and I think I even had Vincent say to give them a little bit of incentive to go. He's like, I'm really curious about this one just because our greatest champion went missing. Like our guild doesn't have that many great fighters in our midst, but we had one really good fighter and he went missing. I want to find out what happened to him and get him back here if he is alive. So even if they don't give you anything for this, I will go into the guild's like coffers or the safe, and I'll give you some money or some artifacts. I'll give you something for your trouble. But it wouldn't be as much as like the 5,000 gold from this or all of the magical items from this one, but they would get something for their trouble. So they decided to go to the farming village. I'm like, okay, cool, because I just handed out the flyers, and I'm just like, you guys decide on your own. I didn't really, it's like, well, if you want to do this one, I didn't do that. I just like, here are the flyers, you guys pick. And it's a good thing they picked that one too, though, because out of all of the quests that I designed, I didn't really have a lot of time to work with the sea monster one. This was the one that I didn't really have a lot of stuff to go on. The ones that I actually had incomplete. This was the first one I finished. This was the second. So I'm really glad they picked this one. That was the beginning of a lot of luck here. Okay. So, they head out. Jeremy goes with them. Like I said, he's an apprentice mage, so he only has a couple of spells to really work with. All the other characters, by the way, are all level 7. They go around and they do... Well, no, there is one more thing I have to mention involving the town first, because after the guild, Vincent's like, don't decide right now, or meet back here tomorrow, enjoy the festival, so go out and do stuff in the festival. And the festival did have relevance. The relevance of the festival is, depending on what they did in the festival, festival would yield them an ally, a potential ally, that in case shit was kind of going, you know, belly up during the quest, if it was looking, because this was my first time ever DMing, so I didn't know, like, okay, these characters are all level 7, except for Jeremy, okay, but I'm like, these are all level 7 characters, but I didn't know, it's like, what if I do send monsters at them, they're a little bit too much for them to deal with, and what if that happens if they do look like they end up getting killed? I could have, like, okay, you have an ally that you made during the festival, like that, the girl Alice that was at the drinking contest. The idea is they didn't end up doing the drinking contest because I basically just rolled on a random table like what they saw and where they went to. But if they were to do the drinking contest and they were to win, then Alice, this assassin girl, would have been an ally that would have like shown up later on during the quest to help them out if they really needed it, right? So that's kind of what I was doing with this. So the one place they ended up going that I just loved, and it was one of the places I actually got on the RPG generator. Okay, there was a I'm not going to pull it up now because it's out of 100, but there was one of the slots on there, like a random building you could go into, a random store or shop, that was a lottery shop that I rolled on a random table, and it's like a lottery shop. And the lottery shop is called Always a Winner. And in order to get into the shop, you have to insert a coin into the door. Like the door is like a slot machine or like a crane machine or something. You got to put a gold piece into the door and it clicks open and you go in. And I think that's all the information that the app actually gave me. So I had to kind of build up what the rest of this store would be. And so this was my favorite one. Out of all the things I planned for the festival, this was my favorite one. And I'm glad they ended up rolling on that to go to that one. So, but first off, Rob, who's a warlock, there to go over the party really quick. There was 2 humans. That was, you know, Frank's character was a human warlock named Rat, who is this very quiet, and he had a patron that could, like, see the world in just loud noises, so he was a rather distant kind of character, you know, that just would stare in there and, like, stare at, like, bugs and stuff, because the idea is the patron really enjoyed, you know, or really took a liking to creatures that did not make a lot of noise, that were very quiet, and their lives were not super long or whatever. The patron particularly liked existences like that were small and pitiful, kind of, in a sense. And Rat almost died as a baby, and the patron took a liking to him when he was a baby about to die, but he lived on, and then that's the situation there. Rob's character was also a warlock, and his name was Dio, which of course we had to call him Dio every time he did that. Kennedy's character was Red, who is a Genasi barbarian or fighter. Barbarian. I'm pretty sure she was a barbarian because she had rage later on. And then Kelsey's character was named Max, I believe, and she was a half orc. She was the fighter, and then Jess's character was a ranger. That had a like wolf companion, or was she a druid? I can't remember. I think she was a ranger that had like a wolf companion. Okay, so That was the players I'm working with, and they're all level 7, okay? And I find all of this out the day of, and I'm like, okay, that's all kind of a lot. That's why I say maybe plan this out maybe a little bit better and get the sheets beforehand, so you're like, okay, I know what I'm working with now, and it's not just like, all right, you have a patron that okay, your patron does, okay, your character does, all right, your character has a wolf, okay, you're a half-orc, and I forgot she was a half-orc half the time, so walking around, I'm like, a bunch of people see you and just keep walking, like, aren't they surprised? I'm like, yeah, I guess they would be. So, yeah, that's something just to plan ahead there. But hey, you just gotta roll with it when you roll with it, right? But anyway, yeah. So this lottery shop, Rob's character Dio was the one that actually saw it, and I'm like, as soon as I'm done describing the door, like the door has a slit in it that resembles like a coin slot, and like Rob's like, oh, you don't even have to say anymore. I'm already putting a coin in that. And I'm like, okay. So they go into this lottery store, and what this ended up being was they walk in and the whole place lights up, and there's like confetti and an illusionary, like a holographic crowd appears out of nowhere, and they're all cheering, and it's like they're in the middle of a game show, okay? And this guy appears whose name is Isaac, and he's this super like flamboyantly dressed, like he's wearing like a white and red suit and tie and cane. He kind of looks like a candy cane sort of deal. And he walks out and he's like, welcome to Always a Winner there, you know? So he's like one part like game show host, like crazy energetic game show. Welcome to Wheel of Money, you know? He's like that kind of basis. One part Willy Wonka, because Willy Wonka was a big inspiration for his character, and one part wizard. He is actually, in actuality, he's a 15th level wizard that I made him, and I gave him his own spell slots and everything, and you know, custom spells and all this stuff, and the kind of guy that he is. He was the most, in terms of NPCs that I came up with, he was the most fun to come up with, okay? Because I'm like basically creating like a Willy Wonka game show host wizard character, and he's a lot of fun. And the idea behind the shop is you walk in and a wheel appears, and it has 10 different slots on the wheel. You spin the wheel or you roll a d10, and whatever the wheel lands on, something happens, okay? So, the way that I made up this wheel was 7 of the slots were basically duds. Like, if you landed on 7 of the slots on the wheel had random amounts of money on them, from like 500 gold to 1,000 to 10,000, 50,000. I think 100,000 was the highest I made it. Like, just like you would see on Wheel of Fortune, just like a bunch of numbers on the wheel. If the wheel landed on any of those, 7 out of 10 chance, it would be a dud. Basically what would happen is a bunch of money would appear in the middle of the floor, like, oh, you hit 100,000 gold! And then Isaac would vanish and a giant pile of gold would appear, and like, oh my god, look at all this gold! And then it would just disintegrate, it would just melt in your hand and just poof. And then Isaac would just be like laughing like a motherfucker. He's like, and then that was it. That's all that would have. So 70% chance nothing was gonna happen, all right? Just them getting screwed with, basically. The 8th slot on the wheel was the bankrupt slot, because I had to include that because of Wheel of Fortune. And so if they landed on bankruptcy, then all of their money would just poof. Just go away. Just the money they had would just disappear, which would give them not the entire parties, but the person that put the coin slot in the door. Rob's character is the one that spin the wheel. All of his money would disappear. So I'm thinking, okay, that would be funny, because that would give like an incentive for, you know, his character to like hate the game. Oh, I'm gonna find that freaking Willy Wonka motherfucker. I'm gonna find him and I'm gonna, you know, beat the shit out of him after this is over. Get my money back, right? And then the 9th slot on the wheel was just a question mark, the mystery slot. That was just me rolling on a random magical item table, and they get a random magical item based on, you know, it was not like, nothing absurdly powerful, like a deck of many things or something, but they would get a magical item. And then finally, the 10th slot on the wheel was the jackpot. All right, so out of all of these spots on the wheel that you could land on, the only ones that could give you something good were the jackpot section and the question mark section. All right, because the question mark would give you a magic item, and the jackpot would give you something. If you landed on anything else, it would either give you nothing, or it would take all your money. I'm like, okay, so that sounds good. That sounds fair. Because I didn't want to give them a shit ton of money right out of the gate. It's like, yo, you hit at 50,000, there's 50,000 gold. I'm like, a little bit too overpowered. So I'm thinking, okay, what could I give them for the jackpot slot, though? I didn't want it to be a crap ton of money. I thought about it. I'm like, no, I guess I could give them just like a really powerful magical item. But what I ended up deciding on doing for the jackpot slot was that they would receive a ticket. And then the ticket, and it would all be explained on the ticket, but whenever they ripped the ticket, Isaac would appear wherever they were in the world and would become their loyal ally for a 24-hour period. So basically the jackpot is they get the service of a 15th level wizard spellcaster, you know, and all of his spell slots and everything he can do for the duration of 1 day. And I thought that was a fair thing to do, and it's like, once again, the odds of them getting that anyway are only 10%, so I'm thinking, all right, that's good. So I made a little ticket, and I made little envelopes, and I put the ticket in it, whatever. I brought it with me, but they're not actually going to land on that, right? So we get up to the moment where Rob has to spin the wheel, and by the way, Isaac knew masked suggestions, so even if they didn't want to spin, they're spinning this goddamn wheel, whether they like it or not. Like, they're gonna spin the wheel regardless, right? So, but no, Rob's character, Dio, was very excited, so he's just like, oh, I'm spinning that wheel. So he goes up to spin the wheel, and when I was planning this out in my head, I was thinking like, all right, when they spin the wheel, I'll just roll a d10 and then whatever it comes up on. But when Rob goes up to spin the wheel, he's like, oh, do you want to roll the dice, Matt, or should I? And I was like, well, you know, you're the one spinning the wheel, so yeah, I guess it would make more sense for role-playing. It would make more sense for you to roll the dice. So yeah, go ahead. So he picks up a D10 and rolls it in the middle of the table in front of everybody, and I look over the DM screen, and 10. He hit the jackpot. And nobody else knew, because I didn't tell them, like, what the numbers meant, like, what it landed on. So I, like, look over the DM screen, and I see the freaking 0, the 10s thing, and I'm just like, you gotta be kidding me. But I'm so happy, also, because I'm like, I get to actually do this. Awesome. So that was pure luck. Absolute pure luck. And I'm like, yeah. So I'm like, okay. So, you spin the wheel, and I'm like really theatrical, and I pull out the little envelope, and I'm like, okay, so all the lights go out in the building, and they come back on, and the building is empty, and Isaac and the wheel, and all the people are gone, and everything, and you just hear the sounds of just cheering in the distance, and I just throw the envelope up in the air, and the envelope just lands right in front of Rob, and just like, and then boom, that just appears in front of you. And so he opens it up and he sees the ticket, and I explain to him in basic, not everything about how it works, but I explain to him the basics. It's like, yeah, anytime you want Isaac, just rip that, and then you will gain the servitude of a 15th level wizard for 1 day. All right, now keep in mind, it's 1 day, 24 hours, but you also have to take into account things like long rests and shit, so be careful when you use that. So, as you could figure, like, you know, I have no idea, like, if this was like a linear RPG, if this was like a game you were playing and you received that as like a plot critical item, you would use that, or it would be used during like the final boss fight, which is what I was expecting it to be used for. I was like, okay, but whenever they decided to use it, because you never know what players are going to do. You never do. He could have ripped it right away. He's like, I want to chill out with this guy right now. But he didn't do that. But I'm like, I like playing the character of Isaac, so even, you know, at least I had that part planned out, where it was like, all right, so even if he decides to just use it right away, I got this set. Whenever he decides to use it, I'll know what to do. Okay, so cool. So just keep that in the back of your mind. So they do that. They get some other stuff in town. They go to the general store, where they get some grease grenades that are just basically like little grenades that you throw on the ground, and they create the spell grease. And so they use those in some combat. But then, you know, they eventually head out toward this village. This is another example. There was a person at the table. Her name was Jess, and you know, when I said the name of the town that I came up with, once again, I'm just pulling this out of my ass. I wasn't like looking up the name of anything, and I just said, oh yeah, the name of the town is Ashdale. It's like this tiny little town out in the middle of nowhere. And Jess is like, okay, so you play RuneScape then? And I'm like, well, I did. Oh, crap, that is a place in RuneScape. So that happened quite a bit, actually, where I'm doing this adventure, and it's like, this sounds a lot like this movie / book / video game, and I'm like, I didn't plan on that, I swear. I think Bloodborne, I never, you know, was into Bloodborne, but there's going to be a reference to Bloodborne coming up, so, you know. So anyway, they head out, and they're on the road, and they got Jeremy with them. They're in a cart. They have a horse that's dragging them and stuff in this cart, and I'm getting used to how battles work, because I'm like, okay, I even told the party, I'm like, guys, okay, the first few encounters you're going to have are not going to be hard. They're just basically going to be me getting used to how combat works in this game, because I've never done combat myself before. So the first encounter was just they're walking through the woods. I have like a random encounter table here, random forest encounters. I roll a d10. It's like, giant boars. You're attacked by 30 to 50 feral hogs, you know? And I'm like, okay, cool. So they fight those. They win, not a big deal. I added a little bit of things like, oh, there's 4 of these giant boars that come out of the woods, and one of them is like a little bit bigger, and he's got a scar on his face, and he's the boss boar. Frank's like, he's the boss boar. I'm like, he's the boss boar. So they kill the boss boar, and they go to skin it, but they screw it up, or they roll. I know he rolled a critical fail when he was trying to cut it, so it's like the meat was ruined. So I'm like, whatever. So they continue onward, and they're getting near Ashdale, and there's a wheat field, and I really wanted to use scarecrows as an enemy, because scarecrows seemed like the most, like, one of the scariest enemies to me in this game, just the way they looked. And I like the idea of I've always loved I'm not super into DC comics, but I really enjoyed Scarecrow as a Batman villain, just the way he looked and stuff. So let me just pull up Scarecrows really quick. Umber Hulks, those are really cool. I want to use those at some point as well. Okay, they ever go to the Underdark. So look at Scarecrows. Look at these fucking things. Look at that. That's freaking horrifying if one of these things attack you. Challenge rating 1. Something else I learned is that just because, like, you think challenge rating 1, right? That's equivalent to level 1. Not necessarily. Like, for example, my characters were all level 7. So let's say if there was one of my level 7 characters went up against a challenge rating 7 monster, I would, if it's just one-on-one, I would honestly probably bet, I mean, it depends on the monster, but I would probably honestly put my money on the monster in that sense. It's not a direct level-to-level kind of thing. But yeah, so I sent like 5 scarecrows or 6 scarecrows at their caravan, and they managed to defeat all of them. They used the grease grenades for that. They get into the town, and this was where I kind of made my first mistake here, and it's something that I would definitely not do in the future. So this is something. I had a story like really laid out, and here's the problem with doing that. You never know what your players are going to do. You never do. This isn't a linear RPG. That's not the point of D&D. It's malleable. All right, that's the point of it. So if you're planning on doing an adventure, I would basically just write down various bullet points on what you're going to do, rather than writing like, the characters arrive in town, then they go to this place, then they go to that place. I'm like, wait, stop. You don't know if they're going to do that. Yeah, you can push them that way, but, you know. So the problem was they get into town, they go into an inn, they scare the ever-loving, because these people are basically Amish. These people living in this town out in the middle of nowhere, they're very far removed and isolated from everybody. They're Amish to the point where they don't really encounter a lot of outsiders, right? So all of a sudden you have a half-orc and a fighter, a genasi walking in. You have this guy, Rat, who uses his warlock powers to scare the crap out of them with a swarm of flies, and the poor old couple are like, stay away from here, demons! You know, so they just walk into the tavern and start doing that. They don't knock, they just walk in, they just break in, and they just go into the tavern and start terrifying the tavern keeper and his poor wife. And I'm like, all right, we can build with this. But I eventually got them to an understanding with the innkeepers and stuff, and I'm like, all right, so you're staying in this tavern, and they're getting their long rest in and all that stuff. Rat decides to stay outside and keep watch, so he goes outside and keeps watch. And this is the thing that I did. I was originally going to have this little thing where they all get captured, and by what's going on here. Basically, the story with the adventure is there's this weird, mysterious fog that's blanketing the town and just covering this town, and the people are scared of it and everything. And I keep playing up the fog. The fog is a big point here, okay? So people go missing in the fog, or the mist, right? So what I was going to do was like have the fog encroach on the tavern, and then everybody that comes in contact with the fog is knocked out immediately, and then is taken prisoner by what's ever going on here. Okay, couple of problems with that, all right? First off, I did not even allow them to make a saving throw, which is kind of bullshit. I mean, that's straight up bullshit if we're being honest here. Yeah, fog comes in and you all pass out. See, that's kind of like pushing, like, all right, I need to advance the plot to where I need it to be, so boom. So I'm not going to do that shit again, because that was kind of a messed up thing. Also, added to the thing, that Frank's character, Rat, has a thing where he doesn't sleep. He has like a feature where he's like, this person, this patron or whatever, or a member of this patron just can't fall asleep, ever. And I'm like, oh. So that's actually where we ended the first session right there, very awkwardly, where I'm like, oh, well, I don't know what else to do now, so we should probably end this session, and I'll rework this, and we'll come back next week and something a little bit better, okay? So that's where we ended the first session, and I went away, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that is kind of bullshit. So you know what? I rethought the way this was going to go. And what I probably, one of the things I made is, like, I wasn't really sure on what level they should all be, so I just said level 7 as just a thing. Probably should have made them probably like level 4 or level 5. That probably would have been better. I didn't want to start them at base level 1, because you can't really do much at level 1, but I should have made them at least, like, level maybe 5 maximum. So I started reworking the quest, though, a little bit, and I'm like, all right, so we'll do this instead. So what's going on here is that all of the members of the town have basically turned into werewolves. It's a curse of lycanthropy, and there's this fog surrounding the town. I am taking all of this was intentional, from the Green Witch arc of Black Butler, because I love that arc of Black Butler, and I was reading it as I was writing this quest, and I'm like, I really love that arc, and I love that atmosphere of like an old country town in the middle of the woods surrounded by fog and werewolves in the mist. I really love that aesthetic, and I'm like, I'm gonna use that. So I just went ahead and just straight away and just took that premise from that arc. That's the premise. But these werewolves are all like challenge rating 3 kind of creatures. So in all honesty, this group of 5 adventurers plus a Jeremy, Jeremy doesn't add much, but it's like adding all these people together, they really would just steamroll the crap out of these werewolves. So I started rethinking the things, and when we came back the next week, the next session, the one we had, was way more fun. And I think at that point, because I had a little bit more time to prepare and to role play with the characters and the characters they were bringing and acting out. So basically, I had it set up like these people in this town were visited by a mysterious traveler that had some, werewolf blood, and he ended up introducing lycanthropy into the town. All of these like farmers and Amish people in this like little tight-knit community all turned into werewolves, but they still have that heavy pack mentality because they were a strong community beforehand. So basically their alignments get changed, so they're evil now, and they just want to satiate their bloodlust. And I had it where I had it kind of really gruesome, where they visit the priest in the town, and the priest shows them like the mangled body of a child that had been like ripped apart by these werewolves. And so I really was like hammering it in, like, yeah, these things are like ravenous monsters that are just devouring people in town. And the idea was the town is all working together trying to, increase their numbers of werewolves, and then they're going to head out from the town for more food because they're going to eventually start running out of food. They can't live on wheat anymore, they just have a craving for flesh because they're werewolves. So they're thinking the adventurers are nothing more than just, more travelers to lure into the town, either eat them or turn them into werewolves and increase their number. Okay, so that was the premise. But these player characters are really strong, and then they're still very isolated, these werewolves. So the idea, like, they're not used to magic. So when Frank's character is creating a horde of flies and just like, bow before me, I'm like, okay, yeah, they'd be fucking terrified about that because they're not used to seeing that. So the priest is in on it, the tavern keeper, his wife, they're all werewolves, they're all in on it. I even had a scene where the priest was handing them out, like, I want you to go to the cemetery where all this fog is coming from, up on the hill there, this old cemetery, and I want you to see what's going on, and I want you to try to exterminate the threat. And the priest gives them, like, all of these, like, he called them, like, silvered and, like, blessed weapons, like, there's a dagger and a stake and a big metal rod, which I called, like, a silver, like, consecrated rod, like a holy rod. And it turns out the joke was none of this was holy relics. The dagger is just a dagger. The rod is just a rod. He's just screwing with you because he's a werewolf. And he's like, oh yeah, take this blessed dagger and attack things with it. But it's just a dagger, so he's just screwing with them. So the funniest thing is, and I'll get to it when we get to the fights, so after they get everything, they head up to the cemetery. They don't trust the priest at all, but they head up to the cemetery, and this is where the final boss, like the fighting kind of begins, where it's like from this point on where it's just like a gauntlet. So the first encounter they have are wights. Wights are basically like high-level zombies. Zombies, I wanted to have like a first round where just zombies and skeletons came out of the cemetery and ooh, spooky, but like once again, these guys are all level 7. Like I would have had to throw like a pretty sizable chunk of zombies and skeletons at them for it to be a threat, and I just didn't even want to deal with all that crap. So I'm like, you know what? It's fine. So I'm just gonna throw these things called wights at you. They're basically like White Walkers or wights from Game of Thrones. They look pretty badass. They're zombies that have armor, so they had a pretty good AC. They had like a 14 AC with studded leather. They had an ability called Life Drain, which allows, when it hits, does damage, but it also drains the maximum hit points for the players if they don't make the save, and a lot of them did not make the save. So I think once around the table, every single player character did in fact lose a hit point maximum, so that like knocked their total HP down a little bit. So that was like the first round where they fought some wights that came out of the ground. I had it be like, oh, this town used to be, there was a battlefield like hundreds of years ago, so these are like the dark spirits of the ones that died on the battlefield that the town reanimated with this magic they ended up getting their hands on. So the whites come back and they fight, and then they all die. The player characters all defeat the whites. Then the priest shows up, and this is where it gets good. All right, I know. Wow, we're into this a lot now, but I hope you guys are enjoying this so far. Whatever. So we're getting into this, right? The werewolves show up. They're surrounded on all sides. They're kind of closing in by these werewolves. There's 6 of them total. This town isn't really all that big. And there's more werewolves to come. But anyway, this is like the second phase of this battle, okay? So the priest shows up with a lantern. He walks into the cemetery, and there's werewolves in the mist, like kind of like at the cemetery gates, all snarling, just ready to attack them. The priest walks over and he starts doing his stereotypical villain speech, because of course, because he still thinks he's in charge here. He still thinks that, like, oh yeah, we can take care of these lowly travelers at all, you know, we've softened them up with the whites, you know, and now we're gonna take them out. So he walks over and he's like, basically, join us or we kill you. That's how this is going to go here. So he begins to turn into a werewolf himself, and he's like, you know, so either make your decision now, let us bite you and introduce you to the wonders of lycanthropy, or we just devour you for food. Take your pick. Or we forcibly turn you, if that's the case, you know. So he turns into a werewolf. Before he gets a chance to do the signal to, like, attack, or before the players even make a decision on that matter, Rob, casts Hold Person on the werewolf. And once again, not something you expect. I didn't expect. Okay, well, let's roll with that. So he rolls the save. He fails the save. So he gets stuck by Hold Person, and he's frozen. He can still talk, but he's frozen. And they have a little bit of a conversation. Rob kind of walks up to the werewolf, and they have a little bit of a back and forth, but the werewolf is very clearly like, you know, is like, we're going to devour you, whatever. You're not going to get out of this town alive. And Rob's just like, we'll see about that. He like says something really cool to the werewolf, takes out the dagger, and just slits the werewolf's throat. He's like, I slit the werewolf's throat, then I take out the ticket and rip it, and I summon Isaac the Game Master. All in one move, and he committed to it. He took the ticket, and he ripped the ticket, and I'm like, boom! And I'm like, whew, okay, Sue! A lot of stuff to unpack there. All right, so first off, before we even get to the ticket, like, he takes out the dagger, which wasn't even blessed or silvered or anything, and just shing, and then this slits this werewolf's throat right in front of him. So, here's the thing. And this is the first, because, you know, the books give you, like, here's how the world works, you know, characters and players and monsters and NPCs, they all have a certain amount of hit points, right? Once their hit points hit 0, they die. If you're a player, you got death saving throws and shit, but that's how that works. Meanwhile, every weapon that you have deals a certain amount of, you know, dice damage, you know, like roll a d10 and, like, boom, you do 4 damage plus 3 or whatever. So there's a game way of thinking about this where it's like, okay, you used a dagger on a werewolf. Werewolves have, like, I think, like, 50 health, I think. So they have, like, 50 health. A dagger does, like, 1d4 damage. So it would be like, all right, Rob, you use your dagger on the werewolf. You do 2 damage on its throat. So there's that way of looking at it. The game way, or the meta way of doing it, where it's like, okay, the werewolf was completely paralyzed by the Hold Person spell, could not move, could not defend itself in the slightest, and then you just took a dagger and then just shing right there. It wasn't even like a nick. It's like you purposely, like, slit the thing's throat. Blood is pouring out. It's like, this thing is fucking dead, you know, like, so it's dead, and I just rolled with it, because I'm like, you know what, that makes the most sense to me. So, yeah, there's rolls in the game, but you also have to kind of play it by ear to see how it's going to go and make the decisions on what makes the most sense. So, I rolled with that, and the werewolf immediately died, and before the other werewolves had a chance to jump on you, then Isaac appears, because you slit the thing, and then you rip the ticket, and then poof, Isaac appears. Like, you start hearing game show carnival music all of a sudden, like, dun 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 dun. Confetti starts falling from the sky. Isaac pops up, and he's like, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, we are surrounded by werewolves. That's a precarious situation. He taps his cane. He activates Magical Mansion, which is one of my favorite spells in the whole game. It's Mordenkainen's Magical Mansion, and they get sent into the mansion, which is like, you know, Isaac's private little hold, and he's like, so you summoned me. What do you need my help for? And he's like, whoa, we need to fight these werewolves. And Isaac is just me. So he's just like, Not much of a threat. Were there like 6 of them out there? Like, what were they trying to do? Oh, they were trying to take over the world, like, or they were trying to like spread their seed. I'm like, really? Wow, they are isolated. They are Amish, aren't they? Man, they would have probably not have succeeded in that. Like, yeah, probably not. But anyway, so they hang out in Isaac's room for a little while. They do a short rest in there, I think, and they get some magical items. They ask, actually, does Isaac have anything cool? And I'm like, well, yeah, he would be. He's a 15th level wizard that's basically just a traveling game show host just to mess with people. So yeah, he would have trinkets and doodads. So I roll. What I do is I roll on that magical item table that I was gonna do for the game show. And I was like, yeah, I'll give you a bunch of magical items that can only, but you'll only have them for the 24-hour period that you have Isaac. And then after Isaac goes away, then they just all go poof. So I'm like, okay, cool. Let's just do that. So I roll on the magical item table. I think Kelsey's character, the half orc, she gets like a +2 sword, like a magic sword, does magic damage. Kennedy's character gets like charming glasses that allow you to like cast charm person on somebody like 3 times a day. Rob gets a pearl of power, which, and I'm just rolling randomly here. The pearl of power actually worked out really good because that allows you to return one of your spell slots, and he's a warlock, so those are really valuable. And then the boots of elven kind, I think, which just allow you to move very silently. And then that's all that. So, you know, nothing crazy magical, and they only last for 24 hours. So they go back outside to fight against the werewolves. Okay, so this fight was great. I love this fight because the werewolves were so done. You know, like, so Frank, we all do initiative, right? And Isaac, the magician, ends up rolling lowest on the initiative, which I think makes sense because he doesn't care really whether they die or not. It's just he's there to help them out, and he's just hanging out on the side of the battlefield, like just sipping tea and just like, all right, whenever you need me, let me know. So we'll get back to him in a second. But Jeremy's also there, and he has an amulet he starts mumbling into and doing something with that. We'll get back to that in a second. And so the fight is on, and all the werewolves start coming at them. Frank does his he basically is doing like an intimidation roll with the flies he's summoning, and all of the werewolves are being very intimidated by that, so they get frightened. They move away from Frank, from Rat, and they just start hiding. It's like because they're scared. They think he's a demon or a devil, and these people have been growing up their whole lives like, fear the devil, you know, because they're living in an Amish town, basically. This is like this really backwater place, so they're scared shitless of this guy, so they're being scared, running away. Kelsey's character decides she wants to embrace the lycanthropy thing, so she takes the blood of the priest and just rubs it on her face and it just licks it. And I'm like, because I was gonna give them that option too. I'm like, yeah, sure, I anticipated that much. Like, if you want to go to be a werewolf, sure, because there's rules for that, for lycanthropy, you can do it. So I'm like, yeah, you want to be a werewolf? Okay, so I didn't have her become a werewolf right there on the spot, but it's just like, yeah, you're gonna be cursed with lycanthropy now because you've taken in werewolf blood. And so that she does that, and she intimidates another werewolf from the blood. Not as bad as Frank's character, but enough from that. So they all start fighting. We get to Isaac finally, and Isaac takes his orders from Rob. So Rob is just like, hey, do you know magic missile? And Isaac's like, do I know magic missile? I know me some magic missile. He's like, I want you to cast magic missile at your highest level slot. And I'm like, okay, so 8th level magic missile it is. And we're like, okay, let's do this. So we had to roll like a bunch of D4s and pluses and all that shit. So he casts, you know, magic missile on one of the werewolves and just blasts them with force damage into the side of the freaking fence. I'm like, all right, back to work. Jeremy, like I said, is just an apprentice mage, so his like strongest spell is like burning hands. You know, it's like 1st level, or he's like firebolt, he's like cantrips, whatever. But what I decided to give Jeremy, because I didn't want Jeremy to die in his first adventure, so what I gave him was a shield guardian, which was something else I really liked. So I'm looking through the book and I see these things called shield guardians, which are basically like constructs, like golems, but not really golems, but kind of. They're robots, basically, automata that work to bodyguard wizards, because wizards are typically rather frail creatures. You know, they don't really have that much HP. So they make shield guardians to protect them. Right after I get through the slots, here they are. Right here, you got shield guardians, right? It's basically like the Iron Giant. In fact, like when I showed everybody this picture, everyone's like, that looks like an Iron Giant. It's got a crap ton of hit points. It's got 142 hit points and an armor class of 17, and it also increases Jeremy's AC whenever he's near him. So I basically had him, like Vincent the Guildmaster, create this shield guardian for him to protect him in case shit got bad. They can also store spells. And on top of just using their fist to just beat the crap out of everything. So I have Jeremy have this amulet, and he summons this shield guardian, and it just, like, it lands in the fog like Iron Man, and it stands up, and it picks up Jeremy, and because it's a large thing, it's like 10 feet tall. It picks up Jeremy and puts him on his shoulders. So now the werewolves are shit out of luck here, all right? These werewolves, one of them's on the ground bleeding to death. 3 of them are terrified. 2 of them are still, like, fighting. You have these 4 adventurers that are all, like, level 7, decked out with magical items that are really powerful. You have Isaac, this 15th level wizard that's just, honestly, like, one of the first things he suggested was, like, do you want me to just kill them all? Like, because I can do that. I gave him some spells that, like, I could just pop out and just, boom, cast, like, 7th, 8th level magic and just probably, if not kill them all immediately, at least drop their HP quite considerably or freeze them. I gave him prismatic spray. I'm just like, I could do that. And he's like, no, we want to fight these things. So I'm glad. They could have just let Isaac do all the work, but no, they were actually fighting there on their own for the most part. But you have Isaac there, this 15 level spellcaster, and then you have Jeremy on this giant shield guardian that just grabs one of the werewolves and it's just like boom, boom, just, he has 2 attacks, and he missed with the first one. He's like, way to go, Jeremy. He's like, nah, I got another one, watch this, boom, and he smacks a werewolf right in the jaw, breaks his freaking jaw, sends him into a wall. I'm like, these werewolves are so dead. Like, but it's fun. This is so fun, right? It's just like the fact of how well they're destroying these things, right? So, and we're role-playing, we're having a lot of fun here. Basically, it all comes down to, I'm trying to think if there's anything else with Isaac that they used. They used Magic Missile with Isaac. There was one point where Rob's like, do you know Fireball? And I know my Fireball. And he's like, maybe not Fire. Everyone's like, maybe not Fireball, because that's like a 20-foot range exploding radius. We don't want to be caught up in that and all get lit on fire. So Rob's like, well, what else do you got? And it was like, I have Disintegrate. Awesome, use Disintegrate. So there's a werewolf. It only had like 12 HP, but Rob's like, disintegrate it. And we're like, Isaac's like, all right, you're the boss. And he flips the cane and he points the cane at the werewolf, and it fails this. I don't even know if there is a save for Disintegrate. Is there? I don't even know if there is. Hold on, let me pull that up really quick. But no, so he just takes his cane and casts it, and the werewolf just gets like, it's like not even Thanos, not even like the hand, like the body starts to go. No, it's just like just like atomized, just in a flash, it's just gone. All right, it had 12 HP left, and you cast Disintegrate, which did like 70 fucking damage. How do you spell disintegrate? All right, there we go. So, yeah, they make a dex saving throw, it failed, and then it just gets 10d6 plus 40 force damage. So it's just incinerated at where it stands. So that was with Isaac. So the great thing is, and this is one of those examples where the dice just kind of worked out. The last werewolf in this midst, it was one of the werewolves that actually did not end up getting frightened or intimidated by the party, and also just somehow it didn't get it. It was like the players had a really hard time hitting it, and also it had a really hard time hitting the players. So this one werewolf was basically untouched, almost at full HP, by the time that all the other werewolves were dead. So all 6 attacked, 5 are dead. You had this one werewolf left that had like 40-something HP, not really that hurt, not scared, not intimidated. And I had a moment where I'm just like role-playing this werewolf and was just like, well, you know, if I was still a humble farmer or whatever, if I was still back in my old life, I would have just given up and run to the hills. But the way I am now, I'm just going to avenge my brethren. Basically, like, I'm the last one standing. I'm going out like a champion. You know, I'm going out with it all in. You know, I just have this thing where this werewolf is like psyching itself up to attack. And like I said, this werewolf has not hit shit the entire time. And it's just like, all right, here it goes. And it just jumps at you. And I roll to hit. And I crit. I roll a 20. And I'm like, badass. And then I also roll for the bites. Both of the bites do a decent amount of damage, and I attack, I think, Frank's character, and I bite him twice, trying to inflict him with the lycanthropy curse, and he saves, I think, barely both times he saves against, because I think you have to make like a con save of like 13 to avoid getting the curse. So he makes the save both times, and then the werewolf is like, well, I did my best there, and they all beat the crap out of the werewolf, and it's at like at 1 HP, and it's on the ground, and it's dying, and it like curses them one last time, and then they end it there. So that's where the second session ended. And I have a little bit that they take out all the werewolves there. I have a little bit more planned with this, to kind of end out this one particular one. And there's like one more boss level character I'm gonna have encountering. So that's so the fact that they have a 15th level wizard with them and the shield guardian now, that's actually gonna be very handy, because the next one they're going to fight, they're actually gonna have a pretty challenging battle. At least in my mind, I hope it's a challenging battle. So, and then that'll be like the boss. So anyway, yeah, I've been jawing on for about an hour now, so I don't know if anybody's still watching, but if for anyone out there that's like wants longer videos from me, or if anybody out there was like, hey, Tekking, I want you to, talk about this, or D&D, and I listen to your videos while I drive, or while I'm at work, or while I'm trying to sleep, this was the video for you, I guess. So let me know in the comments below if there's more of these stories that you would like me to tell. That was it, pretty much. In terms of DM stories, that was literally it, because that's all I've done so far. But this adventure continues, and I have another few ideas in my mind for future adventures, and we'll see where that goes. But anyway, yeah, thanks for watching, everybody, and for DMing. It might be kind of scary at first, especially if you should have something prepared, whether it be like a published module, like like this, or like these are just published, read through these, or just something you come up with on your own. This was something that wasn't super creative, or really all that intricate. It was just go to a village, kill a bunch of werewolves, but it worked. It worked, and we had a lot of fun, and that was all that mattered. So, yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Tekking and Barry signing out. Later.